At number 10 we have Christian Bale. Christian is a versatile actor physically and skill-wise. He's able to shrink and grow his physique seemingly at will. He's played everything from a skinny substance addict to Batman. In 2008, Christian starred in a third film of the Terminator franchise, Terminator Salvation, and while he was filming, a scene director of photography, Shane Hurlbut, apparently moved into Christian's eyesight. This caused Christian to snap out of character and into defense mode. The now infamous audio clip of Christian screaming at Shane. To make matters worse, anyone trying to calm Christian down were met with an equally swift verbal lashing. While the cinematographer was just checking a light to make sure it was in the right place, aka doing his job, Bale made it his mission to share his intense feelings with the entire crew. When the audio leaked, Bale apologized for his actions and told the world to praise the crew for their work. While the movie turned out okay, visually speaking, the project as a whole is remembered as the worst entry in the Terminator franchise to date. At number 9 we have Joaquin Phoenix. We understand a dedication to one's craft, and Joaquin Phoenix is a prime example. Joaquin's acting career has been going steady since he first appeared in the 1989 comedy Parenthood when he was in his mid-teens. While he's seen as one of the greatest actors in recent history, his reputation on set has been tarnished thanks to a little freakout while filming the 2018 solo flick Joker. He appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live to promote the shoot when Jimmy played a behind-the-scenes clip of Joaquin getting loud and angry at a man named Larry and the constant whispering behind the cameras before dropping a few F-bombs and storming off set. When the cameras came back to the studio, Joaquin was frozen in shock, clearly not expecting the clip to ever see the light of day. He explained that Larry was a cinematographer who had teased Joaquin off set earlier that day, calling him a diva. He then explained that there's a lot of pressure on set, especially in a closed space like the apartment from the scene. He apologized to the audience for having to see him behave in such a manner, which was met with applause. At the end of the day, he's a performer and no harm came from the outburst. If Larry's cool with it, so are we. At number 8 we have Ewan McGregor. The last thing any actor needs while filming on location is something from the paparazzi coming up and demanding their attention. One such incident took place with Obi-Wan Kenobi himself. Ewan was on location in New York filming a scene for the Netflix series Halston when he was spotted approaching photographer Steve Sands for being too chatty during a take. McGregor then let out some choice words before snapping back into character and filming a scene with a co-star Kelly Bishop. Not only did nobody on set blame him at all, the cameraman actually apologized and they were able to laugh the whole thing off. I've seen what this guy can do with a lightsaber and none of us should be getting on his bad side. At number 7 we have Tom Cruise. Now we know Tom Cruise is insane, there's no denying that, and he may be one of Hollywood's biggest and brightest in his early days, but his career and skills as an actor have been slowly going downhill since he divorced Katie Holmes. To prove his insanity and rage, let's talk about an incident that occurred on his last Mission Impossible movie, an audio clip that was released of Cruise berating several crew members with intense anger. The crew in question were accused of not following safety protocols that were in place at the time. In the rant, Tom was heard swearing and screaming about the rules and how if he wants something to happen, it will happen. The crew are essentially his minions who must do their master's bidding. The rant went viral when Cruise defended the rant rather than apologize for it, claiming that he said what he said and the stakes were at an all-time high. While this may have happened at a time when Hollywood was shut down and many productions were on hold, that's no excuse to harass the people trying to make you look good. At number 6 we have Clayne Crawford. When actors portray their best friends on screen, you expect the friendship to seep through them in real life, right? Well, wrong. Clayne Crawford and comedian Damon Wayans started working together on a series remake of the hit action film franchise Lethal Weapon in 2016, and the show was well received. The pair seemed to have good chemistry on camera and made us want to see more of their friendship. Behind the scenes, however, these two could not stand each other. The set was plagued with multiple altercations that bogged down production to the point where Clayne's character was written out of the show and replaced with Dukes of Hazzard star Seann William Scott. Following the recasting announcement on set, audio was leaked of the pair bickering like an old married couple just moments before snapping into character for their scene. The clip clearly shows Clayne trying to egg Damon on, and this clip was recorded only a few days following a stunt gone wrong Clayne directed and that left Damon with a nasty head wound. The show did great without him, but was cancelled after only 4 short seasons. We need more of Seann William Scott in the world, bring it back. Number 5 we have Orson Welles. Orson was the man behind what many film schools consider the greatest piece of cinematography ever put to film, Citizen Kane. I've never seen it so I can't comment any further. Orson did a lot of voiceover work back in the day and had one particularly terrible time trying to record a radio ad for the food company Findus in 1970. Behind the scenes, Otto shows Orson going on a rant after being asked to emphasize the words in and beef. Before calling the man running the show some choice words and telling him to let Orson hear what he's supposed to sound like, he complains about the content of the script after fumbling the name of a Norwegian fisherman. He just kind of mumbles his way to the end of the script before claiming the content was unoriginal and uninspiring. The guy was reading an ad that contained the word beef. Sorry if nobody found that inspirational. At number 4 we have Casey Kasem. Casey's face is certainly one you did not know, but his voice certainly is. Casey voiced the original portrayal of the popular cartoon character Shaggy in the mystery series Scooby-Doo. During his time time outside of the recording booth, Casey actually used to run a daytime radio show. The content of one broadcast in particular sparked a very heated reaction from Casey. In 1985, he was asked to read a dedication request about a fan's dog that had passed away. The dedication read, "Recently there was a passing in our family. He was a little dog named Snuggles." Casey was audibly upset as the statement was meant to follow a relatively happy song. He was sent into a tangent in which he made it clear that this kind of thing had kept happening to him for a while now, not holding back a single thought on the matter. Following the incident, the producers started to be more careful with the content they would allow Casey to read. At number 3, we have Henry Winkler. Henry Winkler, best known for his role as the Fonz on Happy Days, was set to direct Tom Hanks in his much-loved buddy cop movie Turner and Hooch. Unfortunately, these two had a pretty rough history together before that though. The Fonz had actually fought with Hanks in character on set of Happy Days for one episode a few years prior. It would appear that Tom wishes he could fight Henry for real though, as rumor has it the two of them didn't get along at all. So much so that a few days into shooting Turner and Hooch with Henry behind the wheel, Hanks ordered Winkler to be removed from set and replaced as director. That's the kind of power Tom Hanks wields. He could just walk on set and be like, no. Not only did Tom complain that Henry's behavior as director was annoying, he complained that Henry was just overall bad at his job. It would take double the average time to reset a shot on set, he had minimal control over his actors, and was apparently very frustrated with having a dog on set. Like, did he even read the script before he took the gig? The dog is a national treasure. What makes this firing even more tragic is the fact that when Winkler was delivered the news, one of the film's producers ripped Henry's contract up right in front of his face. Over the years, when asked about the incident, Henry denies that he ever had any kind of personal or professional issues with Tom, but like Tom's never given us a reason to think he would lie about something like that. What would he have to gain? At number 2, we have Eric Stoltz. Let's talk a bit about the 1985 comedy sci-fi Back to the Future. I loved this movie growing up. The story followed Marty McFly, a high school student who was accidentally sent back to 1955 in a time machine invented by his close friend and scientist Dr. Emmett Brown, played by Christopher Lloyd, and is forced to get his future parents together before he disappears from existence. Whoever pitched this movie must have been lacking sleep. The film went on to spawn 2 sequels, creating what is considered to be the greatest film trilogy of all time. While Michael J. Fox may have played the iconic Marty McFly, he was not the first actor to don the puffy vest on set. A young man named Eric Stoltz was initially cast to play the role. You may not recognize Eric's face, as his most famous character was drenched in prosthetics and makeup, playing the character of Roy L. Dennis in the film Mask as a man with several facial and skull deformities. He was nearly halfway through shooting the flick when the news came that he was going to be replaced with Michael J. Fox. Fox was the director Robert Zemeckis' first choice, but was initially unable to sign onto the project due to his prior commitment to the sitcom Family Ties. Eventually though, the two studios were able to find a way to work out his schedule and allow him to film both projects simultaneously. This is why you may notice a majority of Marty's scenes that take place outside are at night, as it was the only time he could film for a good 60% of the shoot. Robert wanted Eric out from the beginning, however his portrayal of the character was far more intense than the writers had in mind. Not to mention, Eric read the end of the movie as tragedy instead of a happy ending. Spoiler alert, at the end of the first film, Marty returns to 1985 after successfully getting his parents together, but instead of being poor and depressed, the family is now thriving and successful. Somehow Eric took this as Marty becoming an outsider in the world. His intensity combined with the depressing performance of the finale got him kicked off the shoot only minutes after Fox was available. And at number 1, we have Lindsay Lohan. She got her start acting at the age of just 3, starring in over 60 TV spots and commercials for brands like Gap, Pizza Hut, and Jell-O. She had her big break when Disney cast her to play 2 roles in the classic family comedy The Parent Trap. She played twin sisters Haley Parker and Annie James, who randomly meet at summer camp and discover their parents split them up when they were babies following a divorce. Her career only seemed to rise from there, starring in several cult classics like Freaky Friday with Jamie Lee Curtis and Mean Girl as the main character Katie Heron. Her spot on this list, however, comes from the last roles before her hiatus in the 2013 film The Canyons, starring alongside adult film star James Dean in the leading role. Her reputation was tarnished enough by 2013, but it was made even worse after an audio clip was released of Lohan berating her co-star on set for not performing a line properly. Lindsay was annoyed and took several shots at Dean, telling him to do his damn job. According to James, Lohan was aggressive towards him from the very beginning, apparently being upset that he was taking time off from adult films to attempt a career in the real world.
Starting off the list today at number 10 is Robert Downey Jr. Our beloved Iron Man is known to have an edgy attitude, but most of us have come to appreciate his sarcasm. Although we don't know him personally, he seems like a pretty decent guy from what we can see in interviews. However, it was one interview that drove the actor to his breaking point, which led him to walk completely off the set during the middle of the interview. In 2015, when he was doing an interview with UK's Channel 4 News with a journalist named Krishan Guru Murthy, the actor got irritated because the journalist kept asking him questions about his past, pressing him for personal answers. He started by answering his questions kindly, no problem. He even said that he had no problem discussing his past, but it reached a certain point when Downey Jr. even asked, are we promoting a movie? The interview was actually set up to promote his movie Avengers Age of Ultron, and none of the questions had to do with the movie. He was asked about his past drug addiction, alcohol abuse, and even personal questions about his father.
Taking drugs and drinking and all of that. And I just wondered whether, you know, you think you're free of all of that, or whether that's still something.
I'm sorry, I really don't. What are we doing?
So when he had enough, he walked off the set and even gave the journalist a little nudge on his way out. The journalist tweeted out the video, which shows the actor leaving the set, and captioned it with, "A steely moment from Iron Man."
Bye.
Are you? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Throughout the interview, you can see the actor tense up and get a little snarkier as it goes on, but he actually controls himself a lot better than I probably would, if I'm being honest. At number 9 is Tyra Banks. Ever since Tyra yelled, "We were rooting for you" on America's Next Top Model, it's become one of the most iconic moments in reality TV history and also one of the most popular GIFs and memes on the internet. It's been more than a decade since Tyra freaked out on set and yelled at one of her contestants on the show, Tiffany Richardson. The footage has over 11 million views and counting. In the clip, you can see Tyra raise her voice the way your mom used to do when you were in some serious trouble. If you haven't actually watched the clip, you may have known about it because of the famous line and GIFs and memes going around the internet.
Yes, but it's not, this is not, be quiet, Tiffany, be quiet! That's what is wrong with you. Stop it! I have never in my life yelled at a girl like this. When my mother yells at this, it's because she loves me!
In 2017, the former model opened up about the incident and explained her entire experience on the show. When speaking on it, she says, and I quote, "I went into it thinking Tyra was an effing god. To actually see her and the vibe, it was completely different. It was just weird. I felt like we were all there just to be humiliated. I don't think she gave a f about none of us except for the ones who made it big." It's been 11 years since the freakout, and the model has moved on with no hard feelings. She's now a mom of 2 and works a normal 9-to-5 job at a group home in Miami, assisting people with mental disabilities. Taking our number 8 spot is Nicolas Cage. We've often seen the actor lose his mind on screen, but rarely have we seen him lose his mind when it wasn't for a performance. It wasn't until a video was released when he was filming Ghost Rider 2 where you can see him having an on-set freakout. There was a sidewalk confrontation where they were filming, and the freakout shows Cage yelling frantically, doing crazy arm motions, and using very over-dramatic quotes like, "I will die in the name of honor." Turns out it happened downtown outside of a club when locals began to confront the actor, who just was not having it. Once he finished yelling, he began to threaten the people around him, who was trying to actually calm him down, and he yelled, "Don't touch me if you want to live." This freakout caused a lot of controversy because he wasn't visiting on some sort of vacation or on his own time. He was actually filming, and that is where they claimed the set was technically located. Who knows, who cares, the footage is actually ridiculous, and if you want a good laugh, definitely go and find it after this video. Sliding into number 7 is Mike Myers. The actor has had multiple freakout moments, but one that has to be the most ridiculous is this one. The director of Wayne's World, Penelope Spheeris, opened up about a story while doing an interview back in 2008. She explained that while filming the movie with Mike Myers, she often found it difficult to perk up his dark mood. She told a story that the actor actually stormed off set because he was infuriated that there was no margarine for his bagel, only butter. Sources said the actor was so angry because he suffered from hypoglycemia, but that was later cleared up by the actor's rep, who confirmed that he doesn't. The movie's director went on to say he was so emotionally needy and got more difficult as the shoot went on. She admitted that she actually put her daughter in charge of making sure he had whatever snack he needed at any given moment. She explained, "To this day I have this image of her sitting on this little cooler looking at me like, 'Mom, I hate you.'" What do you guys think? Do you put butter or margarine on your bagel? At number 6 is George Clooney, who freaked out on the set and took it all out on director David O. Russell. The two of them worked together on Three Kings, and one of the most famous on-set clashes was shared between the two of them. Apparently there was a lot of tension on set involving different things like Clooney's pay cut and scheduling conflicts, and the friction between them eventually just reached a boiling point. The producer of the show, Charles Roven, elaborated on the story and said, "Now we're shooting the climax of the movie. Helicopters, explosions, gunfire, it's chaos, madness, and George sees sees David talking to the extras and it looks like he's yelling at them, but he's yelling just to be heard. And George comes running over and goes, "I told you, motherfucker, if you're going to pick on somebody, pick on me." And David goes, "Why don't you just remember your lines for once?" And boom, they grab each other and they're tussling, and so I pulled George away. The verbal argument turned into a physical brawl between the two men who now regret that it ever happened. However, they can be proud of their work as the movie is still considered one of the best war movies of the 1990s and it still holds a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. Halfway through our list at number 5 is Jerry O'Connell. The actor is now 45 years old but is still known for being the poster child of cannabis edibles. The incident happened back when he was shooting his movie Stand By Me in 1985. He was just 11 years old at the time and like most kids his age he loved going to the fair. They were shooting the movie in Eugene, Oregon, which happened to be having a big hippie fair. The youngster thought that fair meant it was a carnival and that there would be some rides, cotton candy, and some innocent games. He was infuriated when his set babysitter, who remained with him on and off set, said that he wasn't able to go. The little guy ended up throwing a tantrum on set one day, which led him to tying his babysitter to a banister and snuck out later that evening. Like no joke, he legitimately tied her up and snuck out. Turns out he ate cookies that were offered at the fair, which were actually THC infused cookies, aka edibles. Police ended up finding him crying in the park. His co-star Kiefer Sutherland opened up and said he'd lost it, totally disoriented, and we had to shut down production for 2 days. He was stoned for a little while. Luckily he was just high and not killed. So our number 4 spot is Orson Welles. The actor would have been 104 years old today and has left behind a large resume of successful work. He was an actor, director, and a writer. What he's most known for though to the YouTube generation is the video that has the actor freaking out during a voiceover recording. In 1970, the actor was on set doing voiceover work for a Findus frozen foods ad. During the recording, you can hear people giving him directions and the actor just is not having it. After he was asked for one more take from the audio engineer, his response was, "Look, I'm not used to having more than one person in there. One more word out of you and you go. Is that clear? I take directions from one person under protest. Who the hell are you anyway?" And that was just the beginning of his little on-set freakout.
I have just one more take of that.
Why? I just did it right.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not used to having more than one person in there. One more word out of you and you go. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
By the end of the video, he ends up raising his voice and yelling, "You are such pests. In your depths of your ignorance, what is it that you want?" He seems like he would just be a pleasure to work with. Alright guys, at number 3 we have Eric Bogosian. Things got a little too real on set of The Get Down while filming back in 2016. The actor has always been known to be a little edgy, but that side of him really showed when he flipped out on set one day and threw a chair. His other cast members have opened up about the story, saying that his anger came from the writing staff working overtime on the scripts, which left some of the actors frustrated with little time to prepare. The cast all agree that they were basically writing the show as it went along, which left them very little time to memorize their lines. Eric had enough one day and ended up shouting with anger to a point where he picked up a chair and tossed it violently across the room. The producers ended up sending everyone home that day and continued to film once everything had calmed down. At number 2 is Christian Bale. Who could forget this epic freakout that was caught on tape back in 2009? During the filming of the Terminator movie, video footage leaked out onto the internet which captured the actor going off on some sort of crazy rant at one of the crew members. You can hear the actor yell and cuss for a few minutes at the crew member who apparently walked behind him while he was filming a scene. You can hear the crew member say that he was just looking at one of the lights. Bale continued to cuss at him and calls him an amateur, telling him to stay off the effing set. The fight continues to escalate as Bale threatens to kick his ass and trash his lights. He even goes as far as saying that he will quit the movie if this guy is still hired. Honestly, the footage is absolutely ridiculous and I actually feel so bad for the crew member. Since the incident and footage went viral, the actor has apologized, calling it inexcusable, and admitted that he acted like a punk. He said, "I was out of order beyond belief. I make no excuses for it. There is nobody who has heard the tape who has been hit harder than me." I think the crew member might disagree with you on that. Taking the number 1 spot on our list is Wesley Snipes. I mean, come on, how could you not think that he would be taking our number 1 spot? His story is no surprise these days and still gets talked about even though it happened back in 2000. The actor was filming Blade Trinity when he had a complete freak out on set. Apparently the whole incident was over a shirt. A shirt. Turns out that day on set they let everyone pick out their own clothes to wear. One other black actor that was working on the movie chose to wear a shirt that had the word garbage written on it in big stylish letters. It was the actor's shirt and also the actor's choice, but apparently Wesley missed the whole pick out your own clothes memo. He went on set to shoot a scene with the other actor and saw the shirt that he was wearing, and that is when he went into a rage, yelling, "There's only one other black guy in this movie and you make him wear a shirt that says garbage, you racist mother." Not only that, but he actually began to strangle the director David Goyer. Surprisingly enough, once things settled, filming continued on. But Goyer hired security to be with him on set, and Snipes was ordered to not speak to him for the rest of production. Just imagine how dumb he must have felt when the actor told him that it was his shirt.
Number 10. Rose McGowan. So let's talk about the show Charmed for a second, a solid series that was on air for basically 10 years. The series followed three sisters that discover they are descendants of a long line of good female witches and are destined to fight against the forces of evil. Yes, it was a very fun show, however, just because you play sisters on set does not mean that you're always going to be close in real life. Rose McGowan and Alyssa Milano had a very public altercation that resulted in a little incident on set being shared with the world. Rose claimed that Alyssa threw a fit in front of the crew, yelling, "They don't pay me enough to do this stuff," only she didn't say stuff. She called Alyssa's behavior appalling, claiming she cried every time that the show got renewed for another season because it just meant more time on a toxic set. Alyssa never shared her comments on the situation, confirming what she was being accused of. Number 9. Richard Gere. Richard Gere is one of those actors that doesn't really act. Sometimes people just get hired for films because they have a face for it or the style. For Richard, he did not have enough class and moxie to keep a handle on his role in the film Lords of the Flatbush. He was casted to star alongside Rocky himself, Sylvester Stallone, and according to Sly, the two didn't get along at all. Their beef was strong and long-lasting throughout the entire production until it finally came to a head one day when Richard was a bit too into one scene and he actually grabbed Sylvester pretty aggressively by the collar. When Sly told him to lay off, he laid in instead. The scene was being filmed on Coney Island, and when the actors took a minute to take a break, they tried to break each other. Sly was eating a hot dog alone in his car, which sounds pretty peaceful, and suddenly Richard stormed in, joined him with half of a chicken dripping in mustard, and despite his warnings about the mustard, seriously, it dripped all over his pants. In true Rocky fashion, he elbowed Richard in the face, threw him out of his car, and the altercation resulted in Richard being fired from the project. Oh no, they had to decide between Richard Gere and Rocky. I wonder how quick that decision was. Number 8. Selma Blair. It's funny that this entry involves Charlie Sheen getting a woman fired when he himself has been fired from so many projects because of, well, several reasons. After being fired from 2.5 Men, Sheen returned to the acting world, headlining his own show called Anger Management. It premiered in 2012 with cast featuring Hellboy alumni Selma Blair playing his colleague and friend with benefits on the show. However, Sheen's terrible behavior continued to haunt him from his 2.5 Men days. Blair was very vocal on her problems with Charlie, especially his messy work ethic. Charlie heard and he was having none of that, so he threatened to quit the show if Blair was going to remain a part of the cast. Sheen got his way and Blair was let go after starring in 54 episodes. The show didn't last long though. Who would have guessed that a messy actor being the lead was a bad idea? It got cancelled in 2014. Next up, 7. Shannen Doherty. Unfortunately for Shannen Doherty, she gained quite the reputation in Hollywood for being fired due to issues with her co-stars. She may or may not be making another appearance on this list. Who knows? Guess you'll have to stick around to find out. For the first entry, we're going to look back to the very popular series teen drama 90210, a series following the lives of the Walsh family as they moved from Minneapolis to Beverly Hills. Doherty played the character Brenda Walsh, with her character eventually befriending several students at Beverly Hills High, including Donna Martin, played by Tori Spelling. The series was a hit after its initial season, however, with increased popularity came massive egos. Doherty and Spelling started clashing on set constantly, adding additional drama to the production team that really just didn't need to be there. Considering Tori's father, Aaron Spelling, was the producer on the show, it's pretty simple to piece together what happened. Doherty claimed that she was officially let go for having a haircut that messed up the continuity of the show, but a wig could have fixed that, so better believe Tori Spelling told her papa to boot her from the series. Number 6. Edward Norton. As we all know, Edward Norton didn't last long as the Incredible Hulk in the MCU, only being in one movie in 2008. By the way, I've read some of the comments, and no, Edward Norton was not the first person to play the Hulk on screen. The honor goes to Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby from the original series, and don't you dare get me started on Eric Bana, looking like he's farting every time he turns into the Hulk. The 2008 film was a success, but not a massive box office goat. The studio were at odds and they wanted to keep using the Hulk and incorporate him into the Avengers, but Edward Norton was becoming increasingly difficult to work with. When he was contacted to keep keep playing the character, he demanded more money from the studio. However, he was already on thin ice following his time filming The Incredible Hulk. While not some wild on-set meltdown, Norton did make some pretty odd choices. For instance, as part of his contract, he was allowed to rewrite the script as much as he wanted, but it still needed to be approved. So he wrote new scripts over and over again until we got the 2008 Incredible Hulk movie with some of Ed's ideas baked into the final script. Kevin Feige claims that the choice to part ways with Ed was not based on money, but instead on Marvel just wishing to hire an actor that embodies the creative and collaboration side of their talented members. Essentially, he was like, Mark Ruffalo's nicer than you and he doesn't write his scripts, so bye bye. This ended up being a great decision on both parts though, because Mark Ruffalo is fantastic as Bruce Banner and the Hulk, and Edward went on to make several high quality films, including a few collaborations with Wes Anderson. Moonrise Kingdom would not have been the same without Edward Norton as Scoutmaster Ward. Number 5. Anne Hathaway. So a fun fact that I was unaware of until today, Anne Hathaway was almost a secondary lead in one of the most universally loved Seth Rogen movies of all time. Knocked Up from 2007 follows Seth Rogen and Katherine Heigl as they prepare for the arrival of an unplanned baby after a one-night stand. The cast was packed with stellar comedians like Paul Rudd, Jonah Hill, Leslie Mann, so many more, and the cast almost featured an up-and-coming actor at the time, Anne Hathaway. Anne is famous these days for roles in movies like Princess Diary, Interstellar, and Ocean's 8. These days, she's considered to be at the top of the A-list. In 2013, she even took home her first Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. Now, before this though, she actually agreed to be in Knocked Up because she thought the script was great and that Seth Rogen, is Seth Rogen. You work with him every chance you can. However, she eventually decided not to participate in the film after one issue with the script became cause for concern. The scene in question was one of the final moments in the film, which for those of you who have seen the movie know is pretty graphic. The birthing scene in Knocked Up ended up being a combination of Katherine acting and some close-up clips of her cookie. Anne read that part and decided that her first role in a major comedy movie should maybe be something else. Although it was confirmed that it was not going to be her bits and bobs on display, she has a no birthday suit clause. It worked out for everyone though, because Katherine did a great job despite hating the set apparently, and Anne Hathaway is one of the biggest movie stars to date, so good for her. Number 4. Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper is one of the groundbreaking actors and directors from the 1960s and 70s New Hollywood, eventually finding his niche in the early 90s, playing villains in movies like Speed, Waterworld, and the live-action Mario Brothers movie, where he plays Bowser. Yes, that exists. No, it's not good. So it came as no surprise when he was casted to play Kristoff, the all-powerful TV producer controlling Truman Burbank's life in the movie The Truman Show. The cast was incredible and included Hollywood heavyweight Jim Carrey as the titular Truman. Anyone with a brain cell would have been excited to be a part of this film, still considered to be one of his best dramatic performances. However, 2 days into filming his scenes for Kristoff, which were only expected to take about 10 days to film, Hopper was unceremoniously let go from the set. Apparently, Dennis had a contract in place with producer Scott Rudin that he would be fired should his work be unsatisfactory. He must have been pretty bad in the role, as the director Peter Weir has been described as extremely reluctant to ever remove an actor from a movie. Reports later surfaced that Hopper was basically half asleep while playing the character, and while Kristoff wasn't written to be like a manic man or anything, he did require some effort to be properly pulled off. Ultimately, Ed Harris stepped in to play the role after production had been desperately trying to replace Dennis to avoid having the film be shut down entirely. Thankfully, that never happened, and The Truman Show has gone on to be one of the most depressingly heartfelt Jim Carrey performances ever. Oh, and Ed actually got nominated for an Oscar, so sorry Dennis, looks like it was a good move. Number 3. Jean-Claude Van Damme. The Belgian actor Jean-Claude Van Damme was just on the verge of coming into his own career as the Muscles from Brussels when he landed a job opposite of Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1987's action flick Predator. This sounded like the perfect casting choice. Jean would have worked alongside the likes of Carl Weathers and Jesse Ventura. While this may have turned out cool, the reality was that Jean wasn't casted to play one of the Marines at all. Instead, he was casted to play the titular Predator himself. The special effects artists behind the project called the experience with Jean as a hilarious comedy of errors, in which no party knew exactly what the other was expecting. Apparently, nobody actually told him that the role was basically just a glorified stuntman. They were prepared to direct him to just hop around like a frog, but Jean was obviously confused and upset with that choice. According to him, he had just gotten off the boat and was under the impression that he was going to be showcasing his martial arts skills to the world, but instead he was reduced to a massive, slow-moving alien with dreadlocks. To the surprise surprise of absolutely nobody, Van Damme was furious and dispirited about spending the entire movie cooped up in a clunky and often ridiculous looking suit, and he was ultimately fired and replaced with Kevin Peter Hall. The idea that he was just on set being like, I can barely move in this thing, it makes me so happy. Number 2, Janet Hubert. Will Smith got his big break in the acting world thanks to the success of the sitcom Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It's a show following Will as the titular prince, living with a wealthy family in Bel-Air surrounded by cousins, uncles, and of course Aunt Vivian. In season 1, Aunt Viv was played by a woman named Janet Hubert Witten, but as a lot of people know, she was recasted after an on-set feud with Will Smith went a little bit too far. According to Will, Janet viewed him as an antagonist in her life. She had been in the business for years, and suddenly Will Smith popped into her life, and she had a tinge of jealousy towards him because he got into town, got a gig. Well, hey, that's what happens when you're good. She was trying to convince the producers to give her character more screen time and allow her to breathe on camera, but they said no because it wasn't the Aunt Viv show. She fought back hard, but it was ultimately decided that she would be asked to sit out the rest of the series and was replaced by Daphne Maxwell Reid, who is Aunt Viv. Number 1, Thomas Gibson. Thomas made a name for himself, starring as one of the leads of the series Criminal Minds. He was on the show for a few years, and in that time he made quite a few problems for those unfortunate enough to be staff members of the series. There were a few issues over the years that would have warranted some action, like screaming at producers and writers for not doing a good job, but the incident that got him kicked off of the show for good involved, well, a kick. In 2016, Thomas was swiftly fired from the series after an incident with a writer named Virgil Williams. An internal investigation revealed that Thomas kicked Virgil one day during production of an episode that Gibson was actually directing. And as I said, this isn't the first incident on set that really should have resulted in some kind of punishment, because 3 years earlier, in 2013, he pleaded no contest to no juice related reckless driving after being arrested under suspicion of DUI, and 3 years before that, he allegedly shoved an assistant director, Ian Wolfe, during a late night location scene. That led to the studio ordering Gibson to take 8 hours of anger management. According to most people on the set, Thomas was a wild card. Some days he was friendly and accommodating, and the next he went ballistic.